Hey everybody, this is now week 6, so welcome to week 6, and we are well on our way to creating our rough draft, which we do at the end of this week. So for this video, I'm just going to go over how to structure your essay, what you should be including in these sections, and just kind of how to approach the overall essay so that you can turn it in by the end of the week. You have to bear with me, I forgot my webcam, so I'm using the one that's actually on my tablet, so hopefully it's good enough. So first things first, you're writing 5 sections. That's not to be confused with the 5 paragraphs. When you were in high school, you learned probably this 5-paragraph structure. You had, first of all, the intro. Let me write that a little bit bigger. And that was where you introduce things like the hook, the background, and the thesis. Now these guys are going to stay the same for this project, but the parts of the essay are going to be a little bit different. So your first paragraph, in high school, your first paragraph was the introduction. It had these 3 things. Your second paragraph was what they called body 1. And this was your first piece of support. Actually, let's see. You can't really see that very well, can you? How's that? Not any better. But bear with me. Let me get a black pen here. Now, in body 1, what we did there was we had our first piece of supporting evidence. And that supporting evidence was whatever you used to support whatever the information was in this body. After that, we had body 2, which did the same thing, only before you had supporting evidence number 1, then you had supporting evidence number 2, and your 4th paragraph was the same way. Body paragraph number 3, supporting evidence number 3. So you had basically your thesis, and your thesis was backed up by 3 arguments, and those arguments were described in 3 separate paragraphs, and then your 5th paragraph was your conclusion. Now, things are going to stay somewhat similar, but you're no longer going to have 5 paragraphs. Okay, your paper has a much longer limitation, 4 to 5 pages if I'm not mistaken. And in those 4 to 5 pages, you're going to have more than just 5 paragraphs, because a paragraph you can give or take is about a quarter of a page to maybe a half a page. So if you have, that would be about 2.5 pages right here. Well, you need 4. So if you want to get a little bit further, this is what I suggest for the structure in this class. Now, during week 5, last week, what I had you guys doing was the essay structure for writing project 2, the causal essay. And I had you do 5 parts, not to be confused with 5 paragraphs, 5 parts. First part was the introduction. So it's the exact same as when you did it in high school. The only thing is you're going to have 3 to 5 sentences. 3 to 5 sentences. I usually tell people to shoot more for 4 to 5 sentences, because 3 sentences is a very short paragraph and it seems most of the time to be a little choppy. So the first thing you want to do is begin with your hook. This needs to be some type of interesting statement that kind of gets the readers hooked. Typically what I tell my students to do is ask a question. So what you might do is, for example, if you're writing about guns, you might ask a question about the gun laws. Are gun laws effective? Are gun laws effective? Yes or no? Now, in this essay, try to stay away from actually asking questions. This is just kind of a starter point for you to create your hook. Instead of saying, are laws effective, tell me, what do you think? Either yes or no. Yes, they are effective, or no, they're not. Most of the time, people, when they write about this, they say, no, they're not effective. So instead of asking, are gun laws effective, say, gun laws are continually becoming less effective. Now it's no longer a question, now it's a statement. And you're saying, you're not asking the question, is it effective, is it not effective? You're not allowing the reader to kind of take it and go with it. you're giving them a statement and saying, this is what you're supposed to think. And if they don't think that way, it's even better, because that means it's controversial to them, and they'll say, well, what do you say? Last night, a couple nights ago, I watched The Walking Dead, the mid-season premiere. And the next morning, I woke up to an article that said it was the most terrible episode. Well, the night before that, I'm thinking, I love that episode. It was like my favorite episode. But then this morning when I wake up and I see this article that says it's the worst episode, I'm like, all right, how did you possibly come to that conclusion? So I read the article. And that's the same thing that's happening here. If it's controversial, you're probably going to have you're much more likely to get the reader to read your paper. So that's your hook. Come up with the hooks. But like I said, begin with a question and then turn it into a statement that reflects your perspective. After you've done that, give me a little bit of background. You've told me that gun laws are ineffective, but why are we talking about gun laws? Describe to me why you think they're ineffective. So the background then, I'm not going to write anything. I suppose I could give you an entire paragraph here. Background becomes, tell me a little bit about this. I'll give you one sentence. So, gun laws are continually becoming less effective. Over the course of the last year, let's say individuals becoming more aware of how ineffective gun laws are due to the number of mass shootings. Okay, and you kind of expand on that. What do you mean mass shootings? What type of mass shootings? Why are they ineffective? Why do the individuals expand on this thought here? Finally, once you get to the end of your introduction, you want to introduce the thesis. Now, you've already written your thesis. So at this point, the purpose of this essay is to and you insert your thesis. You've already have that statement, so you can literally just insert it into this paragraph at the very end. Make sure that your thesis is the last statement in your paragraph, in your introduction paragraph, because that's where it belongs. And if I find another sentence at the end, I'm going to assume that your last sentence is your thesis, and that thesis is what guides you. It's the primary thought of the entire essay. So if I think that you're talking about gun laws being ineffective and what causes them to be ineffective, if that's the last sentence in your paragraph, I'm going to read the essay as though that's your main point. If your body paragraphs don't add up to that, don't support that, then there's a major error there. So make sure the thesis is the last statement in your introduction. Now, let me erase this a little bit. That is your introduction. After you write your introduction, it still stays the same, similar to what you did in high school, but now it's not a body paragraph, it's a body section. In this case, we're calling it literature review. And here, you're going to spend 2 to 3 paragraphs or more. That's just a kind of a general. If you want to spend 10 paragraphs, great. Stay within the page limitation, but spend as much time as you want on these sections. I'm leaving that up to you. What I suggest, somewhere in the vicinity of 2 to 3, maybe 4 to 5 if you get that far. I wouldn't go less than 2 though, because you're going to need a lot of information in your essay to kind of meet that minimum page requirement. And if you only go 1 paragraph here, that's only maybe a half a page. So shoot for 2 to 3 paragraphs. Now in the literature review, you're getting us up to speed. You're telling us, you just made that statement in the introduction about how all of these mass shootings occurred and why the laws are ineffective. Tell me how they got that way. Where did this start? Because originally, we had the Second Amendment. It says guns are okay. We didn't have a whole lot of regulations. At what point in history did it start to get bad? Now, you have complete control over your essay. The literature review is a history of your problem. When did your problem start? How has it evolved? But if you have a long-standing problem, i.e. racism, if you have racism as your problem that you're trying to figure out the cause of, you can go back as far or as recent as you want to. You don't want to go, you can go back all the way to the 1800s, 1700s, 60s. You can go all the way back to BC times, okay? But if you do that, you're going to have a very long introduction. So you want to find something that fits in your essay. Most people go back to the 1800s, pick one or two events, go into the 1900s, pick one or two events, and then go into the 2000s and pick one or two or three events, and kind of go as kind of a 100-year increments, 1800s, 1900s, 2000s. But this is, in short, 2 to 3 paragraph history of the problem. One thing though, make sure you focus on the problem there. Don't focus on the variables, just focus on the problem for right now. You may mention the variables, and you may be focusing on one variable over the other, but remember, you're not looking at the causal relationship. You're not looking at how one causes the other. You're just looking at how did this problem develop? Why did you start thinking about this causal relationship? Now that you've outlined the problem, now is the point where you want to tell me what that problem, that the relationship is. That X causes Y? Explain that. Oops, excuse me. This section is the causal relationship. Your X causes Y. In this case, we'll say criminals make gun laws ineffective. You're going to explain that relationship to me. Explain that statement. Whenever you tell me that criminals cause gun laws to be ineffective, what do you mean? How does that work? After you explain this relationship, this is going to be probably 2 to 3 paragraphs as well. After you explain that to me, then you want to go into show me some evidence, use some literature, use some research to prove that this relationship exists. Okay, so there you're going to use outside sources to prove that this relationship exists. You have the idea, you have the hypothesis that says, yeah, I think so. I think this exists. This is why I think it exists. Here you're going to try and prove it. In this one, let's say, this one should be, your essay is about this. So this should be the longest part of your essay. So I'm going to go with 4 to 5 paragraphs on this. Because this is the focus of your essay, so this should be the longest part. After that, easy. That's all downhill from there. Now it's the conclusion. You have 3 parts of the conclusion. Well, 4 parts of the conclusion. They're all reviewing. You review everything. So, first of all, review your thesis. Remind people why you're writing about this. Remind people what the purpose of the essay is. Now, you don't want to take the thesis word for word, so reword it, but put the same idea in the conclusion. After you review the thesis, then you want to review the literature review. Just give me the main points. 1 sentence. 1 sentence to review the thesis. 1 sentence to review the literature review. 1 sentence to review the relationship. And then 1 sentence to review your evidence. Give me this. You may be able to go into 2 sentences of the evidence because it's going to be the longest section, but you're going to review it and give it a very brief summary, 1 to 2 sentences for the evidence. So review evidence. And that's the entire essay. The only thing you want to do is close your essay with a review of what you want them to learn. Kind of a statement that they can kind of chew on at the end. Something like, so in the future, gun laws need to be changed in order to improve, to stop criminals from getting guns, or something like that. Basically, where do you want this essay to go in the future? What do you want to do? Because remember, the next essay is going to be starting to propose some kind of action be taken, so or some kind of research be done to solve this problem. So again, you started with the intro. You have 3 to 5 sentences, a hook, a couple sentences in the background, and then a one-sentence thesis. Then you have the literature review, 2 to 3 paragraphs that give a history of the problem. Then you have the causal relationship. You spend 2 to 3 paragraphs, maybe even less, explaining your X causes Y. Your criminals cause gun laws to be ineffective. Your event 1 causes event 2. Explain that relationship to me. Next, you have the evidence section, where you use outside sources to prove that the relationship you just stated, you're proving that it exists using outside sources. You use 4 to 5 paragraphs there. And the conclusion, that's going to be 1 paragraph. And so is the introduction. This is 1 paragraph, made up of 3 to 5 sentences. So 1 paragraph then on the conclusion that reviews the thesis, reviews the literature review, reviews the relationship that you're trying to evidence, and actually reviews the evidence itself. And then 5, it closes with a statement that shows what's going to happen from here. What should readers be doing, thinking about, taking action upon to address your problem. So that is what I want you guys to do for your essay. If you did this, you have 1 half a page, you have 2 to 3. So let's just say we did the minimum. It would be 2, 4, 8, 9, 10. That's 10. And if they're half a page apiece, that's 5 pages. That's the maximum. So this is kind of a good outline to follow. If maybe your paragraphs are a little shorter, you'll still probably hit the 4-page minimum. So good on that. Now again, as always, if you guys have any questions, feel free to contact me on Skype, email. You can call, you can text, anything like that. But other than that, let's have a good week. I'm looking forward to seeing those rough drafts, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of the peer reviews that are done on that. So once you're finished, just post your essay to the discussion board and the rough draft discussion board for Ride Project 2, and I will see you guys next week.